welcome to Vintage Gaming Memories. Shall we play a game?
Hello everyone, thanks for stopping by to check out this video. Let's jump right into it. So you can see here I'm just panning around my workbench area, and I still want to tackle what I addressed on my last video, which were these boxes here. We have now, 6? And these are 6 different sellers that I purchased from. And I think I remember what's in each one of these boxes. The big one is going to be really cool to take a look at. But for this video, I think I want to focus on this box right here. So let's get that out and ready to go. What's in this box is something that ties into another item I've recently purchased. And that item I'm referring to is the 1980 Bally Midway Pac-Man telephone. Seemed like everyone had one back then, except for me. But when I got the Pac-Man phone a couple months ago, I remember there was another iconic character in that 80s era that also had a phone, but sported a different color than yellow. Let's check it out.
I'm Gumby, damn it!
There it is. Or there it is, right? Well, this flexible green blocky character is called Gumby. I think many of you may know the name, but any of my younger viewers might not. Gumby was created by Art Clokey in 1953 and introduced to the public in the form of clay and through the use of stop-motion filming to produce the movement of the clay character, otherwise known as claymation. You might recall some of those types of shows that we would see during the holidays as a kid, whether it's during Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas. Definitely for Christmas, we saw a lot of that. The simplest way to describe Gumby is that it's a green humanoid made of clay, but not this one right here. This is more plastic and kind of rubbery. But the popularity of Gumby and his sidekick Pokey, which I do not have, that's a orange colored pony that was also clay made. It was watched on television sets in the 50s through the 60s, and it was something that kids just loved to watch and couldn't get enough of. At least that's what my dad said. Now, fast forward to the 1980s, attention was brought back to this character for another generation to appreciate. My generation, Gen X. But it wasn't in the same form of how it originally debuted. Instead, it was more comical and costume-like. It was through the one and only Eddie Murphy on Saturday Night Live with his skits of an angry and funny version of Gumby. To capitalize on the revival of Gumby, Prima Toys created this phone in 1985. And you can see it's extremely simple. This is a landline phone back then, of course, right? And if you look at it, you just have the basic number keys on the front face of it. You get a redial option and a mute option. And right here is where you would write in your telephone number so that when you're at home on the phone talking, you would know what your home number is. Yeah, right. I don't know. That is kind of odd. If you think about it now, we did have this at home. I remember writing, no, I don't remember writing my number in here, but I think it was good to have your number written on here in case someone was using your phone, talking to someone, saying to call me back, and they don't have to ask the host or the owner of the home, what is your phone number? So maybe that's useful for that. Let's see, what else can we look at on this phone? On the front, by the eyes and nose, you can see some slots. The speaker is behind it, and that's where you put it against your ear so you can hear the other person on the line. And then you would speak right over here, the mic. And like I said, this is plastic, so it's not flexible, but the arms are a little bit softer, but I wouldn't move them. Now, the key part of how you hang up the phone is right here. So when you put it flat, you have now hung up on your call, and it's ready for a call to come in or to make a call out. And then when the phone does ring, all you do is pick up Gumby, you've answered your call, and you can begin talking. Let's see, what else do we have here? We have all the screws in place, which is nice. It looks like it's never been opened. And here is the label. And then you would plug it in to your wall jack with this nice long cord. And it's not stretched, which is nice. Great condition. Speaking of condition, the seller did note on the listing that this was in working condition. So we'll test all that out. But before we do that, we're going to go through my normal steps, which would be give Gumby a bath, and we'll be right back. Oh no, the humanity. Yep, I couldn't help myself, but I had to open it up. It did clean everything, except for the insides now, but everything on the outside was clean, didn't polish it yet. However, I noticed there was a problem with it that I needed to address, so that's why it's opened. If you can look closely here at the 3 button, and compare it to the other buttons, 3 is really pressed in. So I don't know if it just needs to be popped back through or what, but we're going to take a look at it. Must be a lot of numbers with the number 3 to be pressed, and it got pushed so many times and you can't really get to it anymore. So I want to try to fix that first. But since we have it open, let's look at the circuitry behind this phone. And it's very simple. Like I mentioned before, this is the top part where you would hear your conversations through the slots of the eyes and the nose. And that's the speaker. And right here you'll hear the actual phone ring, or the tone it makes when it rings. And that goes through the back side of the Gumby phone. And then further down, here is a little switch. And that's when you have it sitting straight up on its legs, that your phone would now be hung up. So that's how that gets pressure pushed to it in order for it to end the call. Other than that, it looks pretty good, but I do want to open up this area to see the actual number pad to see if there's any problems. So we're going to have to take some more screws off and be careful so I don't have to do any solder work on this one. We'll take off these screws and see how it looks behind. Alright, so I was able to get the screws off that board and maneuver it so I don't have to take off anything else, because these wires are really tight. Being 40 years old, I don't want to have any connections broken and have to resolder anything, so I was very careful about it. And here's what I see. I did take off the buttons for 1, 2, and 3 on the top row. They're right over here. But what you could see here on top, it's a very familiar setup that I've seen with many of my handheld games that I've opened up. So you've got this rubber silicone pad that sits on top of the PCB, and what you put on top of the rubber silicone pad is the numbers, your plastic numbers that go on top of it, and then you press down onto it, and that will go ahead and make contact to the PCB, and then it'll register that number. Well, here's the problem. Number 1 and 2 look pretty good. Number 3, which would be sitting on top of that pad, it is pressed down so hard that there's an imprint, a rectangular imprint, which matches the back of the key. So it was pressed down quite a bit for quite some time, and 40-year-old rubber, it's not going to be restored. This is something you have to replace. I don't know any tricks to this other than a replacement part for the rubber itself. I mean, you can see how it's really kind of, doesn't hold its form. So the best I could do is try to pop it out a little bit. Now these pads are really great because they do, hold back from water coming into it or any dust from getting inside the actual insides of a component or a game or whatever it is that's being used. So I see the benefit for this, but pushing down too hard on this, wear and tear over time will cause some issues. An issue like this where it may not register and you need to replace it. But again, this is not a phone I'm going to be using. I just really want to test to make sure it all works. So I'll try to pop this out as best as I can from the back, put the key back on, button it all up, test it, and make sure it actually registers a 3 being pressed when we plug it in, because we are going to test this, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so this is where we're at with this now. I did put it back in, and I don't want to pull it out again, but I can explain to you what I did was, well, let me show you how it looks. You see how the 3 now is definitely just like the other buttons. Sticks through the little hole opening, and I should be able to press it and not have it go in. So what I did was I put some double-sided tape like that, clear, and I put it on the back side of the plastic, not the part of the rubber that pushes against the PCB, just on the back side of the plastic button itself. So it has a little bit more pressure and it's spongy, and it actually pushes the button outward more. So that works. Other than that, that's all I did. And now I'm just going to put the screws back, put some polish on this to make it smooth and shine a little bit more, and then we're going to test it out. All right, Gumby is all cleaned up, put back together again. He's polished, so he looks good. He's smooth. Probably shouldn't be rubbing him like that. He does look great, though. Look at that shine off of him. But the big test would be to see if it actually works, because I did look back at the listing. It did not say it was guaranteed to work, but looking at the insides of this, I think it will work. And that number 3, which was an issue, as you can see now, it does stick out like the other numbers. We'll just see if it actually does register the 3 when we press onto it, when we hook it up. I think he looks great. Oh, by the way, the cord itself, I did do a measurement on this. Without it stretched, this cord goes for about 74 inches, which is a little bit over 6 feet. And then when you do stretch it, you can get yourself an additional 14 inches, so almost 7.5 feet in total distance from the wall jack to the phone base bottom. You can get some movement around the room. Not saying that you can stretch it pretty far, but it's decent. And yeah, that's Gumby for you. Let's go upstairs and plug him into my telephone jack, and let's see if it works. All right, I think we're ready to go. I have Gumby all plugged into my phone jack, which isn't really a landline, or not a true landline. It is a modem, but it will work because I've tried this before with my Pac-Man phone. The only thing different will be that normally you would hear tones when you press the buttons on the number pad here, but what we experience with the Pac-Man phone is you'll get pulse. So you'll hear the click, 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 clicks for each of the numbers, but that's fine. Because the true test of this phone is to make sure it actually works in the sense of it rings, because we did see a speaker for that. Also that it actually has audio sound coming in for the earpiece part, as well as the mic, and then we'll test some of the buttons out. So let me first start by calling this phone with another phone, and let's hear how it sounds when it rings. Okay, here we go. Will you hear that? I'm going to call that again, but I'm going to put Gumby close to the camera here so you can hear it a little bit better. It was pretty interesting. So let me try this one more time, and let's see if I can hold him with one hand while pressing the button down so we can have the receiver down and ready to take a call. So here we go. Listen closely. You hear that? He's being called on this phone, and what I'll do is answer the call. And let me first make sure we have speaker on and muted, so we have less reverb. And what you're hearing the echo from is because it's picking it up from Gumby's mic, which is great because that mic is off and only the speaker's on. So as you can tell here, mic works great. Now, let's see, what else can we test? Let's test the buttons out. Let's try 5. That's the pulse sound you get, and that sounds great too. Let's go 4. 6. All right, 7. 8. 9. 0. 1. Here, a little click. Just want a little click for 1, 2, and 3. Great, 3 works. That was our problem child. Everything seems to work so far, so that's awesome. All the buttons still are sticking outward. They're not pressed in, even after me doing a test like that. Let's try the mute button. Hello? All right, mute's on. Look at that, no reverb. Testing, testing. But I have to hold it down. So I don't think it's a mute that toggles on and off. It looks like I have to hold it down for mute to really work. Because I'm holding it in and you don't hear any reverb. Hello, hello. Now let me let go of the mute button. Hello? There we go. So it's one of those mute buttons. I've seen them before where you actually have to hold it down. And that's okay. Like it's down now. So far, everything works. So there still is one more test I have to do with this, and that is with the speaker. The speaker that is behind the eyes and the mouth and the nose here, which is where you'll be listening to it when you have a phone call against your ear. So a good test for that would be, let's see here. I'm going to go and put the phone that is calling this, Gumby, I'm going to put that phone next to some kind of device that's loud and not within earshot of the camera here. And then I'll put this against the camera so you can hear what's coming through it. Hopefully there will be sound. So let me put it on its side so the call is not hung up. And then I'm going to walk this phone over to some device with some loud sounds that is not copyright so you can hear it through the speaker. I'll be right back. All right, well, you could probably already hear it. I have the other phone next to an Alexa device playing some music, and I can already hear the sounds coming from Gumby's eye slots and his nose. Let's see if I can get it close to the camera for you to hear. Pretty clear. So this is a working Gumby phone from 1985, almost 40 years old. It looks great after the polish and cleanup. The buttons all seem to work now that I put that little sticky tape. And it's not really a sticky tape that you normally would see. It's one of those monster sticky tapes. So it's very thick. And I think that's going to last for some time. And it won't damage anything that you're sticking it to. So that's nice to know. But again, this is not something I'm going to be using every day. It is just a nice little vintage piece to put up for display. But let's take Gumby off the mute and end this call. How do you end this call? You just put them back down because that button on the bottom will be pressed inward and the call will be hung up, just like this. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit of a stretch to tie into vintage gaming memories, but it really was tied into it because of the Pac-Man phone. And I do remember back in the day, Gumby was popular in the mid-'80s, and they were selling these phones back then. Never owned one, but it was a memory of mine, and it was during the gaming period and during the Pac-Man phone, so there's my tie-in. But hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Comment down below. And until next time, keep your gaming passion from the past alive by living it today. Take care, everyone.